which is the just whoops, leads us right into this. So yesterday, for those of you who are in the know, it was Canadian Thanksgiving. And so this was kind of what we were eating. And the West Coast, we don't eat turkeys. I can't stand to look them in the eye whatever I do. Yeah, but salmon, we don't mind eating salmon out here. So we had a bunch of people around the table, and too much salmon, too much wine, way too much desserts. So
amazing.
It's absolutely awesome. But I also wanted to use this image, like always, to give everyone a chance to just pause and take 5 seconds, pat yourself on the back for doing this. This is an amazing commitment that you're making to yourself and to your growth as a business owner. And I'm glad you're here. So well done. All right. With those congratulatory notes out of the way, let's get on with things. So this is BusinessPRO TV. It is a Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And for those of you who are watching it recorded or live on YouTube, you can come here to f2f.live/AlexG anytime between now and December 16th on a Tuesday or Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific or 11 a.m. in Sydney, Australia. And you can see the show live. You can join in with your comments, and as you just saw, with your face in your mic. We'd love to have you. So the whole theme of this entire session is that these entire 26 episodes is that we as business owners have the power and the responsibility to design the business we want. And so we spent the first 5 episodes talking about thinking big thoughts and trying to set some macro direction. And now what we're doing, we're going into pricing. And we talked last time about the power of pricing. We're going to go into it a little more depth right now, right? The single best way to simultaneously improve revenue, gross profit, and customer satisfaction. And you've just seen, if you open my email of 10 minutes ago, if your pricing ain't right, your business ain't right. And tonight we're going to get it right. I normally keep this, a general rated show, but I do want to tell you that this is serious shit. If you don't get this stuff absolutely right, you will struggle in ways that you won't even realize why. And this is why. I always ask these questions when I'm talking with an entrepreneur who's having issues in their business, cash flow issues. One of the first things we talk about is how they're pricing. And most often they do not know how to build a pricing structure. And that's what we're going to start tonight. Okay, we're going to talk about, we have talked about the power of pricing. We talked about the 3 biggest pricing mistakes. We're going to start to correct those right now. And we talked about confidence. And then I asked for some feedback. And I got some feedback. So let's just go through some of that feedback. Meantime, Steph is going to be monitoring all the chat. And so if you want to text a question, she'll make sure that your questions surface. This is going to be I wouldn't say heavier. There's just a little more technical stuff tonight. So I want to make sure that before you leave, before we finish off, that you are feeling absolutely comfortable with the things that you learn. Okay, so here's your opportunity to learn something new. Make sure you don't leave confused. Okay, so I asked you to just quietly review pages 5, 6, and 7 in the workbook. There was 20 questions there. Just sit and ask yourself those questions. See what's surfaced. And here's some of the things that surfaced. I'm going to give you a sec to read that. In fact, let me get out of the way. So lots of things going on here. First of all, thank you for sharing this with me. I think a big part of getting better in any kind of class is you can learn by sitting there passively and you'll get something. But as soon as you start to actively engage with the room, what's going on, but also with yourself, right? Seeing what surfaces, that takes courage, but it also is how the lessons get learned. And there's lots of things here. So this is a student of mine who took a pricing course a year or so ago, and there's a bunch here. I've learned to stick to my guns. So that's awesome. And that's tough to do, right? I've learned to stick to my guns. If these contractors want to go to, $20 bookkeepers, that's fine. Let them go there. I ain't going to be that $20 bookkeeper. And what that does is I may lose the ability, the chance to work with that particular potential client, potential customer. But what it does is it leaves that space free to fill with somebody who will actually respect and value me in the way that I need to. And that's absolutely critically important, right? And you know what? They're going to come back. We know they're going to come back at some point or other, right? And yes, they are driving the old rust trucks. For sure they are. Question, why compare with competition when my product is not comparable? Any question about competition, I'm just going to leave for today because that is Thursday's session. Thursday's session is all about comparing yourself with competition, but not comparing yourself with competition so that we are going to be like them. It's comparing ourselves with competition so that we can learn more about our customers. And anyway, I don't want to give it all away. You'll see more about that on Thursday. Can you add in some advice for people like me that offer services because quantities are lower versus pricing products? Yeah. So we have our quantities are lower. My quantities of services are lower versus pricing products. And you'll see that today, and you'll see that throughout the next 4 or 5 episodes. There's a big chunk of this that is about value pricing and with people who are who have services and who are traditionally used to charging by the hour. And we're going to talk a lot about that in the upcoming episodes, which starts off tonight. From taking your pricing course previously, I still struggle with confidence that I undervalue and don't price my services well. Again, congratulations for sharing that. Even though I have increased my profit margins, I feel like there is still something missing. Well, 2 things here. First of all, congratulations on increasing your profit margins, right? That is, if you've gone from here to here, if you think you can maybe go to here, awesome. But if you've gone to here, from here to here, you've made a significant improvement, and you're probably feeling the benefit in your business. Like that's huge. So my congratulations for having the courage to go that far. And do you feel like there's still something missing? Of course. This is a never-ending process, and Rome was not built in a day. So now you have an opportunity, and this is why I try to do things in 91-day bursts. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. But remember I said, let's focus on between here and December 31st, 2017. If we can make an improvement there, a material improvement there, awesome. Then let's do some other material improvement between January 1st and March 31st, right? So I'm glad that you increased your profit margins, and that should give you the courage. And watching these lessons again over the next few days will remind you of other ways that you can increase your margins even further. So stick with us, and thanks for the feedback. I love it. I've also got several people asking, hey, we want more of this, but we want more of it in a way that maybe isn't publicly broadcast, and where I can feel comfortable to come in and ask my questions about my specific business. And so, awesome. What I'm going to do is in the survey tonight, I'll ask people whether they're interested in that. If you are, let me know. Now, that's clearly over and above the show and the level of effort that goes into building the show. So I'll also ask a couple of questions about kind of what value, how would you value it, and how can we build some value into those sessions. And I want to be flexible, right? So small group sessions, all over them. Let's see who out there is interested, how many people, and let's put something together for you. Okay, this is what I get when I say, hey, is there anything else you'd like to tell me? People say, hey, can you please go through the material faster? Hey, can you please go through the material slower? Man, those episodes are paced just perfectly. So this is always what happens. And so I think I'm going to keep going the pace that we are, although what I think people are seeing, that there's a lot of material. Like this is, there's a lot of good value in here. So I think the pacing is okay. If you need it to be slower, maybe you can ask questions or watch the video again if you need to repeat things. That's why we're recording all this stuff. All right, let's keep going. Oh, a word from our sponsors. Face2Face.live is the technology that we're using. We are still using Beta 1. Beta 2 is getting there. You can see here's another page from the new marketing page that we're going to have. This is what you'll be able to do with it is instantly create a classroom in your browser, unlimited class size. If you're using if you're using GoToWebinar or Skype or for Business or anything else, you're limited in your class size. With Face2Face, even with this version, you can have a class size of hundreds, and you'll soon be able to have a class size of tens of thousands. Text and video interaction, as you've been able to see, and instantly recording to YouTube. All those things I'm working with right now. So keep your eyes on it. It is coming, but we're trying to make sure that it's buffed and polished and just right for when it finally reaches you. Okay, that's the word from our sponsor. Thank you, sponsor. Now let's get back into costs. So there's the 5 C's of pricing. We've talked about confidence the last time. Not something we can fix overnight, but it's something that we can be aware of. And then what I want you to do is I'm going to give you now 4 distinct rungs, analytical rungs that you can grab onto, and we're going to do that in this episode and the next 3 episodes, and you'll be able to grab onto those episodes no matter what your confidence level is, and slowly we'll climb up these things in a very, very analytical way, so that despite your level of confidence, you'll be able to do something that will increase your margin and help to grow your confidence, right? So again, Rome wasn't built in a day, but we're going to get you up that ladder. The 2 types of costs we're going to talk about today, the objectives are to understand them, understand how costs impact margin, to get an overview of the pricing spreadsheet, yay, and learn how to put it to use in your situation. So I'm going to give you the most awesomest spreadsheet I've ever created and shared with a worldwide audience. Is coming up, and you'll get it tonight after this show. Let's get into it. So the main problems that we talked about are that the number one problem is that we don't include all the costs, right? We don't think about all of our current costs and things that affect cash flow. We exclude ourselves, or we just include a minimum, and we don't think about the future. And when we do that, what it does is it artificially compresses our starting point, right? It artificially compresses our starting point so that when we do then understand what we think our costs are, and we go to set our prices are mistakenly calculated. And it creates, even though we're not even aware of it, it creates a pressure situation that just eats away at things and everything that you do over the next week and months and years, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do this. We're going to get you to absolutely understand exactly what your costs are so that then you can have a real solid footing as to what your properly calculated starting price is. And the worksheet is actually going to show you and recommend to you what your starting price could be. And I think as we go through, I got 4 examples we'll go through. I think that some of you are going to be shocked, I tell you, at what your price is and what it should be. And then what we're going to do is, rather than using that new price as the ceiling that we're going to strive for, what we're going to be doing is we're going to use every single one of the rungs in these ladders as a rung in the ladder, which is to put your foot on it, right? Put your foot on that rung and use yourself and use it to vault up, right? To vault up, to add value into your pricing so that you can receive proper value for what you're doing and get the respect from your customers in your marketplace, right? So 4 rungs on this. All right. Here's the first. Hey, Steph. Good to see your smiling face there.
I'm just, yeah, if this was a roller coaster, I would be digging my fingernails into all the safety gear right now. So, but I'm here like everybody else. We got to get through it. So lead away.
Good. All right. Here we go. There are two types of costs, fixed and variable. You heard this from your bookkeeper. You heard it from your accountant. It's super boring stuff. It's freaking important. It's critical, right? And let's go through what they are. So the fixed costs. The fixed costs are costs that typically recur. They occur every single month. They come back, right? No matter what happens. They're not directly tied to the number of units, like the number of widgets you sell or the number of hours you sell if you're a consultant, right? And so let me give you some examples, and I'm going to get rid of you and I here, Steph, and we'll get on to the next screen here. So here's some examples. It's your accounting fees, your bookkeeping, your legal. You're going to pay $300 to your bookkeeper every single month, and so you should. There's, I'm going to skip over bank stuff, right? There's communications, insurance, lease payments, marketing, et cetera, right? These are all the things that you know. Now, this looks suspiciously like an income statement. So for those of you who are looking at your income statement on a regular basis, you will see that a lot of things are here, except that there are some things that aren't here, that aren't on your income statement. For example, your loan payments, the interest on your loan should be shown on your income statement, but the principal payment on any loan that you're making actually doesn't show on your income statement. And so if you use your income statement to put together, what your fundamental fixed costs are, you'll skip out something that's a lot of money and will again cause you to miscalculate your base costs, right? The other couple of things I want to point out here is that your salary and benefits, if you're using your income statement as it is right now, you're going to put down, in particular if you're a startup or if you're in that first year of business or if you're just underpaying yourself, then if you use the value that's in your income statement right now, it's going to be too low. And so what's happening is, as you shall see in just a minute, I got a perfect example that shows this. What will happen is that you again will miscalculate your base cost. You're not going to be factoring in the future, which is what you really want to make, and therefore all the prices that you set will be low, and they will put you into that pricing box that we talked about last time. All right. The other thing that a lot that isn't in here is other things about the future. Again, if you're a sole practitioner but you're thinking of growing in some way, or if you're a plumber and you're thinking of getting an assistant, or you're something like that, or if you're just doing things like if you're doing your own bookkeeping, or if your spouse is doing your bookkeeping but not charging you, right? All these things that you will need to hire for or get subcontractors for, those are not going to be reflected in your current income statement, and they must be. And again, we'll go through an example in just a minute. Okay, so those are your fixed costs. You can find most of them on your income statement right now, except for things like loan payments and the future. Okay, variable costs. Variable costs are the costs associated with producing and delivering an item. They're directly tied to the number of units you sell, which is where the name comes from. They vary with the number of things you sell. So for example, if you sell widgets and it costs you $1 to buy the widget, and then you've got to apply some paint to the widget or put it together with another kind of widget, and all those basic costs, $1 for the widget, the 50 cents for the paint, and then maybe the labor if you're hiring someone else to do the painting and the assembly, all that stuff becomes part of the variable cost. And you don't really incur those costs unless you're selling widgets, right? So if you sell one widget, you're going to have $1.50 worth of variable costs, and if you sell 1,000 widgets, then you'll have 150, whatever the number is, $1,500 worth of variable costs. Okay, and again, we'll take you through an example of this. It does get a little tricky. You can do calculations in variable costs to the nth degree And that's not what we're on about. We're just trying to get more accurate, but it might be an opportunity. If you have a business that's a little more complicated, you might want to get your bookkeeper or accountant involved. Well worth spending an hour of their time to get this stuff right. Okay. Yeah, and so here's just the example. Raw materials, the cost to produce it, the cost to package it, the cost to ship it, the labor costs, right? And we're going to go through, some of this other stuff in a minute, okay? You can calculate it by hand. It's a little bit tedious, a little bit time consuming, a little bit prone to mistakes. That's why we got a spreadsheet, okay? Any questions? I'm going to go over to the pricing spreadsheet right now, and I'm going to show you a live version of what we're doing. But are there any questions in the meantime about either one of these? No? All right, let's keep going. So what you're going to be able to get today in about an hour and a half, you're going to be able to get this spreadsheet. And let me just, quick introduction is that there are a number of tabs along the bottom. And we're going to go through the first two of them today. Well, number 2 and number 3 today, fixed and variable costs. And then what we do is we're going to go through the other tabs, competitor prices and a competitor analysis tab on Thursday. But for today, all you'll do is you'll come in here, you'll see my smiling face, you'll click on fixed costs, and you'll end up on a screen that looks like this. Now, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get the computer to calculate or suggest to us what our price should be. And so let's just go through a basic scenario. Let's, speaking of rusty trucks, let's pick on the plumbers, and let's go through a plumber who's just decided to leave, his employer. He's been hired as a plumber and been working as a plumber for a while, and he's wants to go out on his own. And so he goes, yeah, easy to figure out my price. I'm just going to put in the basics. And so anywhere that it's yellow, you can put in a value. And he goes, well, forget about the accountants, bookkeeping. My spouse is going to do the bookkeepers. Already got my phone. Loan payments legal. It says, yeah. He says, you know what? And if I can make $1,000 a month, that'd be awesome. And I think that's about it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Let's see what my price should be. So what he does is he goes, and let me just skip down here so you can see that there's a lot of other places, things that he can, or she can put in, right? And we're going to come back to this, but for right now, just wanted to do the very basics, right? If I could make if I could make $2,000 a month, that would be awesome. That would replace what I'm making now. Okay? Then click on variable costs. Now, lots of things here on variable costs. I'm going to skip over a lot of them for the first time. But the very first thing that this person says, he says, well, you know what? The foundation of my business is making house calls. Okay? So put in the description of the product or service name there. As soon as you press tab or enter, it highlights the entire column in yellow and then shows you that you can create a second and third and up to 10 items here. And we'll come back to this in a while. Okay?
Alex?
Yep.
Before you continue forward, Adam is wondering why income tax is included as a fixed cost.
And one of the bookkeepers immediately stepped in and said, hey, it's before tax. That's awesome. Way to go, Patricia. So Adam, let's take a look at it in a slightly different way. Let's look at it like this. Let's look at it then, rather than calculating your fixed costs first, let's calculate your variable costs first. And so then anything that's left over just by de facto becomes a fixed cost. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right. Let's get back to the.
It says okay.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Okay, so what you want to do is, what this spreadsheet does is it allows you to get fairly sophisticated, and if you're a manufacturer, and you can create batches. I'm going to ignore them for now, and we'll come back to it in about 15 minutes. So just forget about all this stuff. And the house call, there's no variable costs. The plumber is just going to say, hey, I want to make $2,000, so I'm just going to do as many house calls as I possibly can. So then the thing asks you, hey, with your current resources, what is the maximum number of units of each item that your business could produce in a month? In other words, if you were working flat out, how many house calls could you make? And so if a house call would take, let's say, 2 hours, and there's 160 working hours in a month, which is roughly what there is, 40 hours a week times 4 weeks, then flat out, I could be doing 80 calls, right? And you really don't care much about the putting in the maximum number of units unless you're a manufacturer. Because what this then starts to do is that if you know that you can crank up the machine and you can go flat out and you can produce 10,000 widgets in a month, what that will then calculate is your absolute lowest possible price that you should be charging, right? Like it's just kind of your break-even cost. And it's really, really important for some businesses, in particular if you're manufacturing and you're manufacturing high volume items, to understand that particular number. But for the rest of us, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So with your current resources in marketing, what is a reasonable or expected number of units that your business could produce in a month? And so, if I could do 2 house calls a day, so 20 working days, if I could do 40 in a month, if I could do 30 in a month, that might be, let's do 40. If we do 40 in a month, that would be awesome. Okay, let's keep going. What the next section is fixed cost allocation. What this says now is that for all of the other costs, my overheads, my bookkeeper, my rent, and everything else, how much of that is going to be paid for by this service item, this house calls? And for the plumber, it's going to be everything, right? And so, let's just put in 100% of it. Okay, we're going to skip over channel costs, and we're going to come down here, and we're going to see some pricing suggestions. And the pricing suggestions, I want to skip over full capacity pricing, but what it says is if this guy could go flat out, then he could, if he wanted to, or she, if it's a female plumber, she or he could set the price at $25. But what it's recommending is that the floor price per product be set to $50 per house call. $50 per house call, because that then generates, a revenue of $2,000, which is exactly sufficient to meet the overheads that this person had plugged in. Okay, so let's keep going down here. This is just an introduction to this thing, and we'll do a couple of examples. Then what happens is that we show you a couple of analyses. So it says using the floor price, it then calculates the revenue that you'll generate, and then shows you a gross profit, gross margin, and shows you a net income, like a gain or a loss. Okay, so what you can do here is you can go back up here and you can say, well, what price were you thinking of? Well, you know what? This first person, this plumber, he hasn't started his business yet. You're running this spreadsheet, and he goes, awesome, I'm going to set my price at $50. Okay, per house call. And then you can see what happens here is that it does an analysis, and it says, awesome, you've chosen to match the recommended price, the floor price, and awesome. If you do your 30, was it 30? If you do 40 house calls in a month, then you'll make your $2,000 and you'll be happy as anything. Who agrees that they'll be happy, that this plumber will be happy 6 months from now? I'm going to have some tea, and you can type into the chat box, and I hope you're going to type the right answers. Come on there. Who thinks they're going to be happy in 6 months? All right, Ricky, way to go. Not even close. Kimberly's getting in the action. No way. Forget about it. All right. Here's why. You guys are absolutely right. Love you to bits. Let's go back and see what happens in reality. What happens in reality is that the plumber is going to want to replace the truck at some point along the way, right? And so that isn't shown on here. There's no loan payment, there's no lease payment, there's nothing here. And because plumbers, they like big fancy trucks, you know, they want to be getting a Ford F-250 or a Ram 2500 or whatever those things are, or better. And so they're going to have to spend probably $600 a month. Let's just say $600 a month to get a lease payment on that particular truck. They're absolutely going to want to get a good bookkeeper. Absolutely. And so they're going to want to spend, $300. Let's just say, to keep that numbers clean and keep all that the money flowing properly, and to give me an income statement, a good balance sheet, and make sure that I'm on track for revenue for the government at the end of the year, right? I'm probably going to want to have some insurance, some professional insurance. That's going to cost me, well, let's just say it's only $50 a month. It doesn't have to be a lot, right? Legal, don't need any legal. Marketing, I'm probably going to need a website, maybe a little Facebook campaign or something like that. Yeah, okay, so let's make, I don't know, $150 a month. And rent, forget about it. I'm going to live out of my truck, work out of my truck. Supplies, well, of course I'm going to need supplies. So that's going to cost a couple $100 a month. Income taxes for a small business, I should never have to pay income taxes as a small business. I should be, my bookkeeper will help me calculate how much to pay me so that I never have to pay income taxes. Travel and entertainment, I'm going to leave that for now. What else? Do I really want to only make $2,000 a month? Do I really want to do that? No, of course not. I want to make more. Well, how much do you want to make? Well, I want to make $5,000 a month. Again, even in Canadian dollars, is not even a lot of money, but let's say $5,000 a month, okay? $60,000 a year. Now let's go back and see what happens to my pricing. Everything else is the same. Everything else is the same, okay? But what ends up happening is we start to figure out, it starts to tell us that the recommended price should no longer be $50. The recommended price should be $157.50. Just by adding in a couple of things, by adding in, I know I bumped my price up to, or my salary up from $2,000 a month to $5,000. But then I also, there's just normal stuff. I need a new truck. I needed this. I needed that. And when you sit down and when you do this for your business and you plug in your numbers, you, I suspect, will be shocked at and start to understand why that $50 per session, $50 per house call is not that much. That's why if you call a plumber, you're going to get $150 or $160 or $180 bill for them to show up at your house. They got to drive to get there. They got to drive to get back, and they got to spend an hour, trying to figure out that what your issue is. Never mind resolving it, right? So this is absolutely accurate. This number right here, the floor price per product, and the reason we call it a floor price is because it's the price it's the minimum price that you should be charging for your house call, and that's assuming that you're going to do 40 a month. If you're only going to do 30 a month, if you're only going to do 10 a month, then that price is going to go way up. So you're going to need to have the marketing. You're going to need to have the marketing, okay? All right. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? I'm going to pause for a sec. I'm going to go back to it just a sec, and we're going to walk through this just simply, right? So the first thing you do is when you get this spreadsheet is you simply plug in from your income statement all the numbers that you know are not going to change in the next year or two. You've already got your bookkeeper. Good for you. You're paying your accountant once a year to do the year end, so you're paying your accountant, say $1,200 a year to do your year end work, and so allocate $100 a month, right? Just so that you've got that cost factored in. This is your average monthly amount. So even though you're paying them once a year, just divide by 12, right? Communications. Never mind the phones and the internet. Well, of course, I've got internet and I got a cell phone, a mobile phone. It's going to cost me $150 for sure. I'm going to have insurance. I don't have any loan payments, but I got a lease payment. Legal, forget it. I don't need legal. I'm not renting a place, or if I am, right? So all just go through and put down everything from your income statement. So long as these numbers are accurate, they're going to be accurate for the next year or two. And if you have other things that are underpriced or that you're not paying yet, but you know you need to or you know you want to, then put those numbers in as to what you want them to be. Okay? You don't have to take that money out right now, right? Particularly in the early days, you're not going to be generating those 40 house calls, but you'll never be able to pay yourself this if you don't set your price accordingly. Okay? Once you do that, you get into your variable costs. And for those of you who would just have, one service, for example, then plug that service in, plug the product in if it's a single product, and then say, okay, what's my max? That's important, but really this is important. What's reasonable or expected? I think I could do 10 of these a week once I'm up to capacity. Awesome. If I'm going to do 10 of those a week, then I need to be pricing somewhere in the range of $163 minimum in order for me to pay my bills. If I charge less than that, even if I get my 40 and I charge less than that, well, what would happen? Let's say that I want to round it off. I don't want to charge 163. I want to charge 150 for whatever reason, okay? Then plug that number in, right? You can put your price per product in. This spreadsheet doesn't tell you. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. But what you can do then is you can come down here and you can see, well, at 150, if you do your 40 house calls a month, you'll only generate 6,000. You're going to want to pay yourself and all your fixed costs, and therefore you're going to come up short $550 a month. Okay, $550 a month. All right, I'm going to pause here, and I got a question. Yeah, so Russell, in your model, Alex, are you just seeing the accountant as someone who takes care of tax and compliance, or also as someone who might give regular strategic, financial, or other business advice? So it's a great question, Russell. So what I'm trying to say is that as you take a look, let's ask a fundamental question, right? No matter what you're going to spend your business's money on, no matter what your expenses are, where does the money come from to pay for all of those expenses? So that if you want to hire a top-notch accountant or strategic advisor or bookkeeper or marketing guru, whatever, all of the money that you want your business to spend, it only comes from one place, and that is your customers. And your customers pay you a price in exchange for a good or service, right? And so if you think that you want to engage an awesome coach or strategic advisor, then you should factor that in to your model. And there's a couple of places to put it. You can put it in here under accounting or bookkeeping, or let me just bring this up here. Or what you can do is you have other fixed cost items down here, right? And so what you can do is you can put in, coach or advisor or something like that, right? So you can change this line, right? Advisor, fancy advisor, and you can put in that, what do they cost? What are they worth? They're worth tons, right? $800 a month. And as soon as you do that, and you go back here, what you'll start to see is that will then update the suggested price that you need to make in order to have your 40 house calls meet your thing. Yeah, okay, good. Let's take this one step further, okay? I can see Patricia is just marketing like crazy. So it's awesome. Way to go, Patricia. You guys can read the chat while we're going along here. So, and I totally agree, Patricia. So let's say that this plumber is thinking about the business and goes, hey, you know what? Not only can I do house calls, but I've done a couple of home inspections. I've been brought in by typically, well, let's say real estate agents, but just by friends and family. I've come in, and so what I want to do is I want to add a second service. Okay? And so the second service is home inspections. What you do is you just type that in like that. As soon as you press tab, it shows you that you can keep going, right? You can go up to 10, okay? This is another singular service. So we're going to ignore all this stuff up at the top, right? We're going to come down to capacity. All right, how many of these can you do in a month, okay? And I'm going to ignore this maximums, okay? I'm going to ignore the maximums for now. How many can you do in a month? I could probably do, if I did 1 a week, so let's say 5 in a month. That'd be awesome because I could fit those in, right, to those other things. So then you come down and you go, well, how are you going to allocate the fixed costs? Well, now what's happening is you've got another service that is helping to pay for your fixed costs. And so we could do something like this, right? I could say this is going to only have to cover 90% of my fixed costs, and this new service will cover 10% of my fixed costs. Now, we're starting to get a little, if you're not following me, time to sit down with a bookkeeper, particularly one who understands this model. But all we're trying to say is that you've got this whole overhead, including your salary of $5,000 a month that you want. Well, part of that $5,000 is going to doing home inspections. And so you should be able to start to spread your fixed costs across multiple services, multiple products. And what that will do is we shall see it helps to drop the price of the house calls that you have to charge in order to cover off your fixed cost, because your second item is also now contributing, right? And we're going to come back to this channel cost in a minute, right? So then what it does is it then, again, your floor price, it says, okay, well, in order to cover everything off, you can drop your floor price from 175 or whatever it was down to 165, and you should be charging somewhere in the neighborhood of $147 for your home inspections. And a home inspection is, it could be 3 or 4 hours, right? And so maybe I actually want to charge not $147, but I actually want to charge a little higher. Maybe I want to charge $160. Okay? And as you put that in, what ends up happening is that your analysis down here, it starts to tell you, well, if you did 5 of those, and if you did 40 of those, and if you got those particular prices, you generate this much in revenue, you have this much in overheads, and you'd therefore this much in overheads, and you'd therefore be short still $550. Okay? I'll come back to Russell. I'll come back to your question in just a sec. Okay? So what we're trying to do here is accurately calculate your fixed costs, put in your various services, and then let the computer help you calculate what your base prices should be. Okay, and it's a bit of if you haven't done this yet, like if you're starting up and you don't have a lot of practice doing this, a lot of history to be able to count on, then you're going to have to kind of make up numbers or talk to other people who are in your industry. Hey, how does this work? How many service calls can I make? How many home inspections can I do? How many widgets can I sell, to try to get a sense? But the point that we're trying to make here is that at least you have a sense and a starting sense, and you won't let your confidence level by itself determine your pricing, because it will surely have you calculate your price lower than what you should. Okay, let's get back into some of the questions here. I'll bring my feet.
Yeah, a lot of them are coming up. They're flying up now for you. So I'm trying to figure out when to jump in and also let you go. But there's this, this stuff, this pricing stuff is pretty important for all of us. So
critical.
It's where do you start? And that's, Yeah. Allocating again your fixed costs with Adam, and it is quite important, and deciding when to stop and when to include and all that other kind of stuff. And
yeah. So let's take Russell's questions here, right? So how do you allocate your often hidden or untracked admin or customer service activity or time, which can eat into that 160 hours per month? Well, sure. So there's two ways of doing it. If that person is another person on your staff that is not generating revenue, but is actually just you're paying to do your service, your customer service calls, or to do your admin costs or something like that, then guess what? That is part of your fixed cost. And so if you've put that person into your fixed cost, this model all automatically will track it and factor that in. Okay, so awesome. Step number one, make sure you track it. Okay, if that admin cost or time is in your own time, what it's doing is it's gonna eat into the amount of hours that you can reasonably, or the amount of service calls you can make, the amount of home inspections you can do. And so what ends up happening then is that is factored into here, right? When I ask the question, or when the worksheet asks you what is reasonable, how many could you reasonably do? Okay, and so you're absolutely right. There's going to be 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40% of your time, or 50 or 80% of your time is going to be on overheads, right, that are not billed. That's, again, if you be rational about this, the numbers will show up. Mm-hmm. But if you're starting up in your first year and you know that right now it's killing you, the freaking admin is killing you, and 40 or 50% of your time is going to all that stuff, you were kill for an administrative person, and you know that person is going to cost you $3,000 or $4,000 a month, then put that number, that person, into your fixed overheads, and then up this, increase this. If you could do 60 of these, because that person allowed you, then put their cost into the fixed, and increase the number of house calls that you could make. Does that make sense? So what you're trying to do is you're really trying to imagine your business a year in the future, a year from now, when you've got the basic pyramid that you need, this basic support staff, that you got your accountant, you got your bookkeeper, you got your admin staff or admin subcontractor, if you're only spending paying half time, you've got your call center person, whatever you need, right? And that frees you up to spend 80% of your time making house calls and home inspections.
Yep, exactly.
Is that clear? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, guys, hopefully that answers your questions. There we go.
Let me keep going. Okay, Adam. So, Adam, how do we determine the allocation of fixed costs becomes quite important? Any suggestion how in practical terms you would make that allocation? Right. So what I would do here is, it's actually not that important, Adam. Whoa.
Sorry, guys.
There's a dog. It's actually not that important. The dog went, yes, it is. It's actually not that important. What's critically important is that you get all your fixed costs, and then just play around with it. You can do it a couple of different ways. One of them is by your own activity. If half your time spent here and half your time spent there, cut it in half. If you do by revenue, well, that one is generating 80% of my sales, and this one's generating 20%. You can do it that way, right? Sometimes your business is really clearly different, right? So these expenses are clearly over here. These expenses are clearly over there. And we're going to give you an example in just a minute. Then you can do it that way. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. Okay. I'm going to keep going because it's 10 minutes to the hour. I got a couple of things I want to show you yet. And then we'll answer some of these other questions. You can stick around, and I'm happy to stay till the cows come home, as you know. All right. I'm going to turn off our cams here and because we got another spreadsheet. Okay, so I hope that answers the basics. Now let's go into an example. Let me just check my notes here. Okay, so I got an example of a food company. Okay, this is a food company that's just done an acquisition. Okay, so let me just take you through. They're a startup food company, and they had done a pretty good job of allocating understanding what their costs were. They had an accountant, they got a bookkeeper, they got, by the way, if anyone knows a really, really good Winnipeg bookkeeper, let me know. Really good Winnipeg bookkeeper, let me know. Okay, they got the communications down, insurance, legal, marketing, they know that, they got the rent, they got all the stuff, right? And so they then went into their variable costs, and here's what they're doing. They're packaging up meals, and they're delivering meals to people, right? And so what they do is they create a batch of 6 meals at a time. So this is an introduction to how we use batching. So in a batch, they create 6 meals. Or if you're creating widgets and you're doing 1,000 at a time, then you would put in 1,000 widgets. They know the total cost of the materials they need to make or acquire the entire batch. They know the total cost of the packaging and packing materials that are needed for that batch, $3.50. And they know the total cost to ship or deliver the batch is $11. And the total cost of labor required to acquire, produce, package, ship this batch, and deliver is $1.50. Okay? So what this does then is it says total variable cost for the batch are 36. Divide by 6 items in the batch. My total variable cost per unit is 6. Okay? $6. With your current resources, what is the maximum number of units of each month that your business could produce in a month? Full capacity, 20,000. We're doing 2,000. We're going to allocate 100% of our resources to this. And so therefore it comes down and it says, hey, your floor price should be $13.43. And for a variety of reasons, these guys had decided to price the batch, those 6 meals, at $11 per unit, right? Or $66 for a group of 6 delivered, let's just say, right? So $11 per unit, even though the spreadsheet says $13.43. Because what they know is if they get their volumes up, if they get their volumes up from 2,000 to 20,000, what happens is that the overheads, the fixed costs, are now spread across more units, and this drives down their per unit cost. See how this works? And so that they know if they can just get their units to about 4,000 or 5,000 per month, that they're actually going to be at break even and making money. So they're in growth phase. They're in that happy, tough growth phase right now, right? But they made the decision to price their product rationally, even though when they go down and take a look at the analysis, they know that they're going to be losing about $4,800 a month at least right now. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the beautiful part about this is if you're doing manufacturing and you know that you can get to greater capacity, it shows you there's what your price could be, as low as $674. Here's what it is based on your current numbers. And so now you have more information to rationally pick your number, and your number that you pick for your price will be based on other factors, right? But these guys just did an acquisition. And before they did their acquisition, they ran some numbers. And what they did is they went to another spreadsheet. They took this thing and they created another spreadsheet. And you can see it up here. They created another spreadsheet. They took exactly their numbers that they're doing now, and they said, we're going to do an acquisition. And here's what that looks like. Much of these numbers are the same, except that they had to do a little bit of borrowing in order to acquire this other company. And so they knew they were going to have a loan payment that was going to go up to $1,800 a month, right? So again, they're looking at the future. Their marketing is going to be the same. Their rent drives up, goes from, I think it was $500 a month to $1,900 a month. So their fixed costs are going to be higher when they did this acquisition, okay? Variable costs. They bought a business that basically makes sandwiches, just batch makes sandwiches, right? And so what they did then is they just took the business that they were going to buy and they plugged the numbers in. Our batch is going to be 60 sandwiches. We put in the cost to make those 60 sandwiches, blah, 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 blah. We know what our total variable cost for the batch and our total variable cost per sandwich. And I'm going to get to Colleen in just a sec. with your current resources, what is the maximum capacity, and the business that you're buying right now, what is it right now? And then let's allocate the costs. Let's allocate the fixed overhead. And what they did, they went from 100%, allocating the old business, the original business, allocating 100%, having to pay for 100% of the fixed cost. Now they just split it. And it could have been either. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What happens is, as you drive down, what ends up happening is you can see that this acquisition actually allows them, it reduced their floor price from $13 down to $10.52. Oh, look, they were charging $11. So this just goes to prove that model. As their volumes went up, even with some increased fixed costs, their profitability on the old business is better, and the profitability on this business, it's they'll get there, right? Again, don't want you to understand, don't want you to have to figure out exactly how to do this like right now, but I do want to show you that you can use this model in a number of different ways. And what ended up happening with these guys is that they dropped their loss. Instantly, they dropped their loss from $4,600 to $3,600 a month. In other words, the new business was going to contribute an additional net $3,000 a month to the combined entity, assuming that all the numbers work out. Okay, so there's a variety of ways of using this spreadsheet, and I'm happy again to answer questions in just a minute. And I will touch on Colleen's question here, which is, what if every product item is a different size, therefore a different cost? No two customers are alike. Love you, Colleen. And we're going to get to that starting in the next episode on Thursday. And then guess what the fourth C is? The fourth C is customers. And we're going to start to talk exactly about this type of stuff. And guess what the fifth C is? The fifth C is context. And we're going to take those customers and we're going to split them apart, tease them apart even more, because you're exactly correct. One size doesn't fit all. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you a starting point. And some of you who have never done this before are going to be surprised. All right, let me get back to the slides. And let's see how we do that. I think I do it this way. And we drag this over here. Oops. No, I can't do that. Let's do this. All right. Well, 1 minute to the hour. We're just about at the end. So I think that was I'm hoping that wasn't too rushed. I'm hoping that you can use that spreadsheet step at a time, right? It's a magical thing. Type in the yellow areas, watch what happens, play around with the numbers, put in your business. If you have questions, you can share that spreadsheet with me if you want. I can't see it right now, until you share it with me. Share it with me, or send the questions, in one of the various ways that we offer, and we'll talk about some of those questions on Thursday when we come back. Okay. If there's any, I'll stick around for a few minutes after I finish this off, and answer any of the questions that I know there's still a few in the chat. Okay. So bear with me for another minute or two. Okay, so here's your homework. You want to put episode 8 into your calendar. So Thursday, we're gonna continue on with this. We're gonna get into the dreaded competitors. So Thursday, October 12th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to send you a survey. This is an important survey because I'm going to ask you whether any of you want more like a smaller group session, and we'll talk about how that. Review the workbook. I'll send you some workbook pages that will talk about this, just reaffirm and give you some hard copy of what we talked about today. And then I'll send you the link to the pricing worksheet so you can get into it. I know you're dying to get into it. It's going to be about an hour, half an hour to an hour before I get that to you, okay? The resources, again, you can always go, you or who are watching it live right now, or anyone who's watching it on a video, you can always go to BusinessPRO.TV. You can scroll down to the Get Caught Up section. Every single one of the episodes is there, and you can get the resources, the workbooks, the spreadsheets, the videos, all the rest of the stuff. You can get it for any one of the episodes that you may have missed. Okay. Credits, as always, conceived, written, produced, and hosted by yours truly. Happy to do it. And Stephanie Gorchinsky, Steph, who just is always there both before, during, and after the show, adding some color. Steph, we're going to bring you in here. Hey.
Hello.
Awesome.
It was a mouthful, but that was an amazing episode. And you filled it with that worksheet is going to be, I have a feeling that that's going to be a game changer for a lot of people, including myself. So thank you for providing that.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I just hope people use it. That's what it's there for. So.
Oh, I'm sure we will. It's amazing to even just see it that well organized and to have it be able to populate. That's what everybody needs. That's what I needed. You know that. But so thank you. Thank you. Better late than never.
You're very welcome. Hey, listen, so that's it. 2 minutes past. I think we started 2 minutes late. My apologies. And now we're ending 2 minutes late. But it's a perfect 60-minute segment. Thank you all for attending. I'm going to go to the questions, and I'm going to bring in anyone who's still sitting in the guest queue. If you don't want to be brought into the show, just say leave, and you can still watch. But I won't bring you in. But let's go back to the chat, and let's see.
There's a ton of questions that are just sitting over there, and of course, this was a very thick topic, and of course everybody has, like I did, I know that I did, and I always do have those specific questions that relate to my pricing needs, to all the little variables, all the little things. So I don't know if you want to run through them or if you have people waiting, but it's a lot of material.
Yeah, let me run through them one at a time, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull you over and pull you back in because
no problem.
When you turn your mic off, there's a bit of a sync issue.
Okay.
So you'll be right back. All right. So we're going to bring Steph back in right now. Hey. And see, what happened there?
There we go. Oh, I unclicked the mic. Weird. I unclicked the mic.
No, you're fine.
Russell said the same thing, that our sound is coming in and out again. So Stephanie's sound. Alex explained it to me the other day, but there's this thing about when he pulls me in and he pulls me out, and there's this buffering rate, the thing that happening. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
For right now, don't worry about it. It's beta 1. Beta 2 is coming out. Listen.
Not preview. It's gorgeous.
Now, and all that stuff is going to be resolved. But let me get to the pricing question. So Colleen said, what if every product item is a different size, therefore a different cost? So Colleen, what you can do then is you can go into, you've got in that pricing spreadsheet, you put in your fixed cost under the fixed cost, and on the variable cost, you can put in up to 10 prices. So that'll give you a real good opportunity to start to put in your various prices, your various products or services, which may well have different costs attached to them, and which may well have different numbers that you are selling on a per month basis. So it does allow you to get reasonably sophisticated. Anything more, listen, if you got more than 10 products, then clearly you're more sophisticated for that worksheet, but you can also get by with grouping them. So I hope that answers the question. You can put up to 10 products or services there, and it does manage it beautifully. It's something we're going to release. Yes, Russell, it's something to be working in on constantly, or at least every quarter, 6 months. Every 3 months, every 91 days, you should be reviewing the stuff, and getting better and better and better at it, right? I wonder if Alex would agree with a flat rate to ensure you cover your fixed costs and then the rest at markup. Patricia, you've obviously, I think you're one of the ones that has been in one of my pricing courses before, so you're absolutely right. And we're going to get to all that, in particular when we get into context and value pricing. We are going to talk about value pricing because, not to give away the ending, but what we want to do is I want you in your heads to completely separate the costs of your service and your goods with the price that you are going to end up paying. Completely separated, it's a big change, and we're going to have to get you there step by step. All right. In future episodes, you're going to cover off SaaS pricing. Yes. Pathways linked. It's all good. Awesome. Thanks, John. It's the same with psychological assessment that we debrief and review with clients. Some are slower because of the speed of their behavior style, and we have a fixed, not time-based price. We have to adjust accordingly at the time. Yeah, I think what you're saying there, Russell, is, as you learn more about your business and your customers and how your customers are responding and your clients to the various offerings that you have and the price points that you set, there's no one's an expert in your business. You're not an expert in your business. You never will be an expert in your business because everything is constantly fluxing and changing, right? But that's why we go through this in an iterative process. Quick one, Alex and Stephanie. The sound is phased in and out. We talked about that. What about a combination of products and services? Yes, Patricia, you can actually put combination of products and services in there. Your services may not have a cost of goods sold with it, a variable price, but they may have. For example, if you're in a bookkeeping firm and you've got a student or an assistant or somebody who's helping you do some of that work, and you're, in particular, if you're paying them as a subcontract basis, you're charging 50, they're charging you 30. Absolutely, put that 30 in as a variable price, so you can absolutely mix your products and your services. Excellent combination. You're prospecting, biz dev, activity. Okay, so Russell, again, back to do you or how do you include prospecting, biz dev, activity or time, hidden costs? So yeah, the way that works, Russell, is that if you're by yourself, you're sole practitioner, and 40% of your time is going towards business development, then your ability to produce, your ability to have billable time and billable hours is going to be impacted. And so that's going to show, let me show you where that shows up, right? Let's go over to here, whoops, pricing worksheet, right? So what will happen is that because you can't go flat out doing house calls or doing consulting or doing bookkeeping or whatever you're doing your services, you can only spend half of your time doing it. That's where you put your salary into the fixed cost area, what you want to make. You want to make your $5,000 a month. And then you come here and you say, but I can only do 40 of these a month or 30 or 20. Does that make sense? All right. Oh, I wanted to show you one more thing. Anyone who's still watching, everybody, a bunch of people watching. Let's say that our plumber on these home inspections, I'm just going to remind you that right now the floor price per product is being suggested at $147. Okay, but let's say that what this plumber does is they're doing home inspections, which are oftentimes needed by new home buyers, and so they've got a relationship with a real estate agent. And they're promising the real estate agent to give them, let's just say, 20% of the overall price that they end up selling it for, right? So this is a channel, it's a marketing channel or a sales channel. If you know that you're going to be spending 20% of your final price to real estate agents, then put that number in here, 20%, okay? And then watch what happens to your recommended floor price. It jumped up from $147 to $183. Okay, this is fantastically important because the channels, when someone says, "You'll give me 20%," and you know, okay, I'll give you 20% because I'm going to get the deal. But what ends up happening is that 20% has to come from somewhere, and if you don't factor it in, that's a huge bite out of what you're making. So for example, and some channels are very expensive. When I sell books on YouTube, I essentially make no money. Why? Because I've got the cost of the book and everything else, but then Amazon takes 55%. The channel cost, watch what happens here if I bump that up to 55%, right? That 183 jumps up to 326. Like you can't make money on Amazon unless you're doing volume, right? Unless you're doing volume, or you're using it as a marketing channel so that you get people to buy your books or whatever it happens to be, and that gets you an introduction to that person. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, I think I've exhausted all the questions.
Yeah. Hold on, you had.